So, hi, Nick.
Hi.
And if you are watching and tuning in to our Power of the Parent interview, thank you for joining us. Nick runs Daisy First Aid in Leeds, and I'm so excited to chat to you and hear all about what parenthood has unlocked in you. So I'm going to hand over to you. Do you want to tell us a bit about yourself?
Yeah, so my name's Nick. I'm married. I've got two amazing girls, Charlotte who's 6 and Sophie who's 3, and also got 2 dogs as well, just because I'm not busy enough with running my own business and having 2 small children. So, yeah, so that's me, very busy all of the time.
Yeah. So the whole reason that I set up Power of the Parent was because I firmly believe that there are so many things that parenthood brings to us and kind of unlocks in people. I would love to hear a bit more about what it's meant to you, and has it had, like, what are the strengths that you spotted in yourself since you've become a parent?
Yeah, I mean, just kids are amazing, aren't they? They're just like these little bundles of joy that you feel total immense love for, but also at times potentially, especially at the minute of lockdown, maybe just want to put in a cardboard box next to the Christmas tree in the garage. Not really. Don't bring social services. So just amazing, aren't they? They're just, I'm sure every parent will say this, at the centre of your world. And yeah, just brings so much out of you that I'm a lot stronger than I thought I was, would probably be the number one thing. Because we had IVF with our 2.
Okay.
So we had a lot of fertility problems coming up. It took me a while to get pregnant. So I think when they did come along, it was just like, oh my God, amazing. Didn't ever think I'd get to this point.
Yeah.
So to have 2, not just one's just amazing to me. And I have just create this whole life. Sounds really corny, but and just have them here is just absolutely amazing. And I still feel like, even though Charlotte's 6, I still feel like I only brought her home from hospital yesterday. I don't know where the last 6 years have gone at all. I mean, she's 6 going on 16, so some days are like
that totally resonates about the coming home from hospital. Still feels like yesterday. My eldest turns 6 this week in a couple of days' time, and it's still so fresh.
yeah. It's just amazing. And I would have said I was always a pretty big organizer, because I used to work in financial services before I did Daisy First Aid, and manage teams and stuff. But yeah, having kids, especially when they go to school, your organisation skills are definitely brought out.
Yeah.
Managing and running a business as well. So yeah, I'd probably say those were the 2. Remembering that you do actually get through, even though you think this bit's the toughest bit of whatever you're going through, you always get through it and think, yeah, I can't do anything. So like coming home and thinking, oh, I've got to keep this little person alive. Because I know when Charlotte had quite a long labour, I was in labour for 35 hours, but I was only in hospital. Yeah. I tend not to tell this to the pregnant mums I do first aid classes for, where they say, how was your labour? I'm like, yeah, fine. I recommend gas and air though. But obviously the first one they kept saying, oh, give it a bit longer. We went in the hospital at 6 in the morning. She was born at 9:30, but we're home for like 5:30, 6 o'clock that night.
Right.
And it's funny that sort of that you remember. I remember watching Great British Bake Off, and being in our bouncy chair, and Dave, my husband, was making spaghetti bolognese, and me looking down going, oh my God, what do I do now?
Yeah.
I've got to keep this person alive. Yeah, but definitely gut instinct as well. I'd say definitely always listen to your gut instinct to get you through. So you think pregnancy's hard? Think labour's hard? No. Sleep deprivation was probably the hardest for me because I'm not very good with lack of sleep. But you just keep going on to the next challenge, don't you? And you've got to remember, well, I've managed to keep her alive till she's 6, so I'm doing all right so far.
It's like a permanent resilience test, isn't it? Like there's always something new to get over or learn about, or all of those things. It's quite it's ever evolving, isn't it?
Yeah. And you think well, that's my biggest test. And I'm sure in 10 years' time, when she's 16, I'll look back now and think, 6-year-old, that was the easy bit. Now we're going into boyfriends and stuff like that. But yeah, it's amazing. And just like the love of life that they've got. Because I think sometimes we get mixed up, don't we, with all the drama and stuff like that that's going on and paying bills and stuff. Just my two have a complete love of life and everything, and let's do this, let's do that, and they find the fun in everything. And I think that brings it out of you as well. Because yeah, it's easy to get mixed up in all the drama and all the downsides of life.
Mm.
Yeah, they're just amazing like that.
So you said that you were previously in financial services and then transitioned to start running Daisy. At what point in having the girls did that feature?
So I had Charlotte, then I took a year off because I thought, well, I've been through loads in IVF, so I'm definitely taking my full year. Went back part-time, and I did have a really supportive boss. He was lovely all the way through, like IVF appointments and stuff like that. And then when I got pregnant with Sophie, I just thought, I don't want to have to fight to get days off for Christmas nativities and the constant mum guilt of I'm at work, they're at nursery, oh, which should I be? Because I quite like, I always had a good career. So it's a bit sort of, I almost lost my identity a little bit when I went back with Charlotte. I was like, oh, who am I? I think sometimes when you go back part-time, people are like, oh, we'll just give her little jobs. And it's like, well, I haven't lost all my skills that I had 12 months ago when you used to give us all the big projects. Now you're like, oh, did we not tell you about that? And you're like, so I just thought there must be something easier than this, running out at like 5:01 to get to nursery before it shuts and all the stress that entails. That's why I decided to go self-employed, really. So yeah, and obviously with school holidays, all my family, as you can probably tell I'm a Geordie, are still up in Newcastle. So with school holidays, we don't have that much help. So Dave's family's lovely, they help whenever they can, but they've got their own lives going on. So that was another reason I went self-employed, so I had the flexibility as well to take time off when Charlotte started school as well.
And how's that transition been for her starting school?
Yeah, she loved it. Oh, yeah. She's no fear at all. She's like, yeah, I've started school, this is brilliant. Like, went in, because Charlotte's school started them in phased. So 2 started half an hour, 2 started half an hour after that. And the first day was just 7 kids. Then they had another 7 kids, split it up like that. So she was the first day. And they're like, oh, you can stay with her. Like, if she's like not settling in. And I was like, you want us to stay with you? She's like, no, just go, you're fine. And I'm like, what? This is a big moment for me. She's like, no, I'm fine. See you later. I'm like,
jog on, mother.
Yeah, she's totally like that. But I'd rather she just go in happy as Larry than be crying and stuff like that. But yeah, it does pull your heartstrings a bit because you're like, this is a big moment. You should be missing me. You spent the last 5 years of your life with me. So, but yeah, she absolutely loves it. And I think Sophie will be the same when she starts as well. But yeah. How was yours when they started school?
My eldest loved it and still does. And she has gone back during lockdown 2 days a week when school started to reopen for year 1 and has really loved it. So yeah. I think that was one of the, like, she was definitely ready to have some friend interaction, and all have been brilliant with all the precautions that they've taken, and we felt as confident as we could. So that's been good. My youngest, she hasn't gone back to nursery yet, and I'm not sure what that transition is going to look like when she does. She loves being at home. So I mean, she did love nursery as well, but you know, she turned 3 at the end of March, and they're still little then, aren't they? They don't remember so much. She's mentioned nursery the odd couple of times, but I'm not sure she's going to be like pelting it to the door, let's put it that way. So yeah, I'm not sure who's going to get the short straw to do the drop off on day one.
I sent Sophie in with Dad when she started a couple of weeks ago at nursery, because I thought, because she got really clingy to me, she still is a bit more than normal. And I said, you better go because she'll only cry if I take her. And he said, oh, she got to the door and he went, Mummy. And he went, no, you're all right. And the nursery nurse was like, come on, we're going to have a great time.
Yeah.
We're going to play with the water. And she was like, okay, fine. And just went in. So.
Right, well, I'm going to have you on speed dial next Monday.
Yeah. What time do you need us?
Just in case I am the one that ends up dropping her off and need counselling afterwards. I think it's such a lovely environment for them. And I, when I went back to work, having had Polly, my eldest, I didn't get the guilt, but then I got the guilt because I hadn't got the guilt. And I was like, everybody talks about this guilt you're meant to have. And I just, like, she really loved nursery and I really loved going to work, and saw the kind of the cycle of when I went back and earned the money that I wanted, that we could do the things that we wanted to. So I just thought, well, I'm getting what I want, and it feels good. And I think with Lily, my youngest, she has transitioned into nursery as I was setting up my business. So that feeling of guilt didn't, it sometimes does rear its head, but for different reasons. It's not that she's in childcare and I'm not with her kind of thing. It's for other reasons. Because I think, like, I'm putting her there for a reason, and that reason is really valid. I can't work with her at home, and I think, you know, people that have been doing jobs where they've had the kids in the background on every call, in every meeting and all that kind of stuff while they've been at home, I absolutely bow down to them, because I know that there's been no way around it. I'm not here to wave any sort of magic wand, but that's not working from home or flexible working. That's working at home in a crisis with your kids in the background, isn't it? So I like when she is back at nursery, I make no bones about saying I like the luxury of being able to just work and not try and parent and do everything else at the same time. So I'm personally looking forward to that next week. It'll just be 2 days, but 2 days is better than nothing, so I'm absolutely taking it. But,
well, I have enjoyed my 2.5 days that I've had to myself, and a hot cup of tea and hear my own mind.
Yeah,
without someone talking to us a million miles an hour.
Not having to listen to your own name being screeched for the majority of the day is quite. I'm sat right next to you. I'm here. I'm giving you attention. You don't need to shout, "Mummy!"
Yeah, I keep going, I'm not deaf. And I'm like, what?
I can hear you.
Yeah, they're funny, aren't they? But I'm hoping maybe companies are going to start understanding now, actually, people can work from home and you can have a bit more flexible working. I had a different job when I went part-time with Charlotte. I was a mortgage coach. But before that, I was a bank manager. And that was just literally no part-time. Either full-time or nothing. So I knew I was going to try and have IVF, so that's why I moved out of it and took a big, massive pay cut and went with a different company. So I'm hoping this whole thing, there might be some good come out of it for mums and things like that.
Sorry, go on.
To still keep the careers they've got, but still balance it with the kids as well. So you can have the best of both worlds in a way.
So knowing what you know now, do you think that is valid, that you can't? I realise it's a broad question and could be a statement, but the whole bank manager side of things, you're either full-time or you don't do the role. Do you think that's valid, or do you think it's not?
No, I don't think it is valid. I'm sure a lot of my ex-bosses are going, what? But at the end of the day, the world's not going to end if there's not a manager there. And you could always rotate. It's a bit like when I went on holiday, they didn't put another manager in. It was either my assistant manager looked after everything, or you used to just say, the manager down the road's there. If you need anything, give them a call. So, there's no difference. And if anything, when I worked part-time, I probably worked harder when I was part-time than I did when I was full-time. You probably get more out of your staff if you balance, because if you work for a good company that you know is going to look after you, lets you work flexibly, you're going to put more into that job because you know they're looking after you. So I don't think it is a very valid point, although they always use the excuse of, well, customers have got to be looked after and all that kind of stuff. Cash points at 2 o'clock in the morning need to be put right. So yeah, so I don't think really it's a valid point. I think they're just kind of blinkered to, you know, that way of working.
See, my background in talent management, and I think there's such a benefit to letting teams step up, and not necessarily just through people, managers working part-time, but you know, working differently or taking different projects on, to allow that headspace for, like, your, in those instances, your assistant manager to run the branch a couple of days a week and get that exposure and experience to what it feels like to actually be at the reins, so that when they move into those higher roles, it's not a shock and a surprise, and that dip in confidence, comfortableness, engagement, all those things that we know happen, like there's loads of research about stepping up into roles, you'd make that so much shallower if you had people giving it a go, basically, before they do it for reals. And
I think that's, like, you know, one of the big reasons why I came out of financial services, because it isn't really, there's very few companies that are family friendly in financial services. So yeah, you kind of, you don't want to have to choose. It's like, well, I'm skilled at what I do. You know, I've spent the last 15 years getting to this level. You're just gonna try and blackmail us to say, well, that never ever works. So
think of all those,
they lose out, really.
All those skills that they've lost with you going. If you could go back and tell the Nick of 4.5, 5 years ago, when you did go back after having Charlotte, a couple of pieces of advice, what would you go and tell that version of you?
Oh, good question. I'll be thinking about this now, going, should I be telling myself that now? Definitely don't worry so much about the little things. Everything does turn out all right in the end. She's not going to be sitting at the nursery step by herself with the lights off, being the last one there, like Oliver Twist. And just, you know, because I probably lost my confidence a bit going back, because it was almost like a lot had changed and everyone was kind of like, well, this is what we do now. It's like, well, even if I'm working part-time, still push yourself, still have confidence in yourself. And just don't, like you, be like more like you, don't have mum guilt, because you know, someone told me a long time ago, it's like worrying and guilt are just pointless, because all you do is go back and forward like on a rocking chair and you never go anywhere. There's no point to it. So yeah, try and not be guilty and just believe in what you're doing. Have faith in yourself, because you're stronger than what you are, you think you are. That was a very long answer to that question, wasn't it?
No, I loved it. No, not at all. That was fab. It's really inspiring, because you think that the reason we can answer those questions is because we've come so far from those earlier days of parenting and working, and all you're doing is reflecting on the learnings that you've had, isn't it? And how powerful is that? And you've been able to go on and make that decision to work for yourself, which is not an easy decision, and it's not like a fix-all, is it? It's really hard, and that doesn't mean that employed work isn't hard either. It's just it's just different, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like, people always go, "Oh, you've got a brilliant life." I'm like, well, it must be brilliant working for yourself. It's like, yes, it is, and has got lots and lots of positives. But yeah, there's many a night when I put the kids to bed and I'm emailing, or I'm going out of classes on a Sunday, that sort of thing. So it's kind of balancing. So like you say, it has lots of positives, but it's very difficult. Probably a bit like I've just said, you've really got to believe what you're doing and keep pushing forward, really. Because it's easy to get caught up in the, how am I going to pay the mortgage next month? Especially in lockdown, when I teach first aid. Mouth to mouth isn't really applicable when you're in lockdown. But we have been doing Zoom classes like this, so it hasn't been too bad. But yeah,
Okay.
you've just got to keep adapting and finding a way forward, haven't you? Yeah.
How can you teach mouth to mouth over Zoom? You've been going like really close to the camera, or?
Well, I've got like me dummy, so I step back a bit on me. It's one of those things where it looks all professional, doesn't it, at the front? But actually, if you look behind the computer, the ironing board's there, the washing shoved on it.
Yes,
Make it
I'm familiar.
It's on me sort of IKEA washing laundry basket, the wooden ones that I'm sure everyone's got on top of there, but you can just see the top of it. I'm giving me secrets away now. Yeah, then teach it like that. And then I say to people, you got a teddy or a doll, you can have a practice. Yeah, kind of is working, but yeah, it's like adapting to different ways, I think. And I think it's sort of, when I do like home classes or venue classes, you have a bit of banter with people, don't you? It's a bit, when you've got 4 or 5 people on and they're just sitting and watching you, and they put themselves on mute because like they don't want the baby interrupted and stuff like that. I'm like, no, it's fine, doesn't bother me, because my kids were the kids that cried for every baby activity. So yeah, that interaction's a bit weird on Zoom, isn't it? And I don't know about you, but I tend to do this waving thing at the end.
Yes.
You do that. You're like, bye.
It will most definitely happen on this. I'll be like, bye.
Yeah. And I'm like, what? I never walked out with anyone's home going, bye. Like
I never used to leave meetings going, see ya, you're right.
Yeah.
There's something gone around on LinkedIn of Lego figures. It's like 9 different Lego figures and saying, which Zoomer are you? And one of them's the waver. There's the parent, and it's a Lego figure with 2 kids on their knee. There was the PJ wearer. I haven't been on a Zoom call yet. Family, yes, and friends. But I haven't actually been on a formal one where anybody's actually rocked up in their pyjamas.
Yeah.
What else was there? Oh, the technophobe. You can just see their forehead. That's my granddad. Whenever you FaceTime my granddad, all you ever see is this portion of his face.
Yeah, I get that. Frozen screen and stuff.
Yeah, and then there was the one that never turns the camera on, the ghost.
Yeah.
I can't remember the other few, but it was really funny. I was like, yes, that's it. That would definitely sum up pretty much most types of Zoomers.
Yeah, definitely. I'm a waver, definitely a waver. I've had a couple of blank screens.
Yeah.
That's bizarre, doing classes with blank screens, which is fair enough if they don't want to be, that's not a problem. But when you're trying to like speak and you're like, just a blank screen.
Yeah,
I'm like,
weird, isn't
any
it?
questions? I'm going to take that as a no. Moving on.
Yeah, I feel the same with that one. I delivered a workshop to, it wasn't to do with returners, it was something else, a couple of weeks ago, and it was a very young audience. They were like early 20s, most of them.
Yeah.
And I've delivered to them face to face before, and they've been quite quiet. And then when I was on this, none of them had videos on because the bandwidth of their server thing. I'm talking like I know what I'm talking about. I don't. But there was a reason why none of them could have their videos on. But it was a full day session, and then it was like literally just like this, talking to the screen. I'm like, I know you don't all like talking anyway, so this is even worse.
Yeah, especially when it's a full day.
Yeah, so are you still there? Anybody?
Yeah.
Anyway, so I suppose my last question for you would be around the future of the workplace for parents. We've touched on it a little bit, and particularly off the back of lockdown, I know it's got a lot of people talking, but what would your hopes for parents in the workplace be?
I definitely think, obviously it depends on the job and stuff like that and how people feel, because some people will probably think, I don't want to work from home, I hate it. But I think it should be more of an option if people want to work from home. It's obviously the technology's there to do it. Obviously certain jobs you can't do, like if I used to work in a branch, someone still needs to serve and hand out money.
Mm-hmm.
But to give people a bit more sort of flexibility and ways of work and that, not just if they've got sort of families, they might just to give them a bit more free time to go and do the things that they want to do. to get a better work-life balance. And I hope there's a lot more understanding of, you know, when people come back to work from maternity, don't just assume that, oh, here's a couple of workbooks, catch up on what you've missed, right, you're back into it, and having to sort of feel guilty for not sort of being up to speed and stuff like that. So I hope there's a bit more understanding of actually when mums and dads are at home, they're not just having 3 days off.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's harder being at home than it is being at work.
Absolutely.
So yeah, that would be my hope, a bit more open-mindedness on how we can work now.
Yeah.
Yeah, and potentially not just a 9 till 5. If you can sort of start a bit earlier, finish a bit earlier, or spread your hours differently across teams and stuff like that.
That would be brilliant, wouldn't it? A bit more creative thinking about what the working environment looks like. And I think options is the word, isn't it? It's about, and choices, that we can make choices and be treated like adults and make some of those decisions. And you're absolutely right about flexible working is not just for parents. And I think that needs to be such a much louder conversation, that it's always been there. It's never always just been for parents, but really bringing that to the forefront. I think it's time now. Come on.
Yeah.
Well, that was brilliant. Thank you so much, Nick. And where can we find out more about Daisy First Aid Leeds?
So we're on Facebook and Instagram at Daisy First Aid Leeds. I'm sure if you do a Google search, I'll come up on there, hopefully. But yeah, they're the main ways of finding us, and I'm sort of all over. I'm Leeds, but I kind of go to York and Harrogate and all Wakefield and all those sort of places. So if you think, oh, I don't live in Leeds, give us a ring anyway. Because especially now with Zoom, I can be everywhere.
You can do a session for London.
Yes, exactly.
Well, that's brilliant. I will put all the links to your website and your social media handles and things in the comments and show note stuff on here as well. So thank you so much for talking to me, Nick, and we will see you on a screen somewhere soon. Thank you.
Thank you.